Most people are holding on to things that are slowly destroying them, and the worst part, they don't even realize it. Right now, at this very moment, you're probably gripping onto something, a worry, a need for control, a fear of what might happen, and that grip is making your life harder than it needs to be. What if I told you that the secret to getting more out of life isn't about holding on tighter, but about learning to let go? Here's the thing, we live in a world that tells us to chase, to grab, to never give up, to fight for everything. But there's a truth hiding in plain sight that changes everything when you understand it. The more you try to control life, the more it slips away. The more you let go, the more life actually gives you. Think about water for a second. When you try to grab it with a closed fist, it escapes through your fingers. But when you hold your hand open, the water stays in your palm. Life works exactly the same way. So let me ask you something. How much energy are you wasting right now trying to control things that are completely outside your control? How many sleepless nights have you had worrying about outcomes you can't change? How often do you replay conversations in your head wishing you said something different, did something different, were someone different? This isn't about giving up. This is about understanding a fundamental principle that can transform your entire existence. The illusion of control. Let's start with something you need to hear. You're not actually in control of as much as you think you are. And that's not a bad thing. That's freedom waiting to happen. Look at your life right now. How many hours do you spend each day trying to control outcomes, trying to control what people think about you, trying to control your future, your reputation, your image? We're obsessed with control because we think it keeps us safe. We think if we can just manage every little detail, plan every scenario, predict every outcome, then we'll finally be okay. But here's what actually happens. The more you try to control, the more anxious you become. Because deep down, you know you can't actually control most of what happens to you. You can't control the economy. You can't control other people's choices. You can't control whether you get sick tomorrow or whether someone you love decides to leave. You can't even control your own thoughts completely. They pop up whether you want them to or not. Think about a time when you tried to force something to happen. Maybe it was a relationship you tried to save by holding on tighter. Maybe it was a job opportunity you obsessed over. Maybe it was trying to make someone understand your point of view. What happened? The harder you pushed, the worse it got, right? This is the paradox of control. The illusion is that control gives you security. The reality is that trying to control everything creates suffering, because you're fighting against the natural flow of life itself. Now here's where people get confused. They think letting go means becoming passive. They think it means you just sit back and let life happen to you. That's not what this is about at all. Letting go doesn't mean you stop trying. It means you stop suffering over things you can't change. There's a difference between effort and struggle. Effort is what you do. Struggle is what happens in your mind when you resist reality. You can put in maximum effort while simultaneously accepting that the outcome isn't in your hands. That's the sweet spot. That's where peace lives. Imagine you're swimming in the ocean. If you fight against the current, you'll exhaust yourself and possibly drown. But if you work with the current, use its energy, you can get where you need to go with much less effort. Life is the same way. There's a current to existence, a natural flow, and you can either fight it or flow with it. The people who suffer the most are the ones who fight reality the hardest. They argue with what is. They say things like, this shouldn't be happening, or why is this happening to me, or this isn't fair. And look, maybe they're right, maybe it isn't fair, but arguing with reality is like arguing with gravity. You might be right, but you're still going to hit the ground. So what would happen if you stopped arguing with reality? What would happen if you accepted what is, even while working to change what can be changed? You'd find something incredible. You'd find that you have way more energy than you thought. Because all that energy you were spending on resistance, on wishing things were different, on being angry at what is, all of that energy becomes available for actually dealing with life. Here's a practical example. You get stuck in traffic. You can't control the traffic, but you can control your response. Most people immediately start stressing. They grip the steering wheel tighter. Their jaw clenches. They start thinking about how late they're going to be, how this always happens to them, how the universe is against them. And all of that stress changes exactly nothing about the traffic, zero. It just makes them miserable. But what if you accepted it? What if you thought, okay, I'm in traffic, that's what's happening right now, I can't change it. Suddenly you have options. You can listen to something interesting, you can practice breathing exercises, you can use the time to think, or you can just be present with the experience of sitting in traffic. No resistance means no suffering. This applies to everything, your health, your relationships, your career, your past mistakes, all of it. The parts you can control, control them. The parts you can't, let them go. And here's the magic. When you stop wasting energy on what you can't control, you have so much more power over what you actually can control. The weight of attachment. Now let's talk about why we hold on in the first place. It's because we're attached. And attachment is one of the heaviest things you'll ever carry. You're attached to outcomes. You're attached to how things should be. You're attached to your identity, your story about who you are. You're attached to your possessions, your relationships, your ideas about how life is supposed to work. And every single attachment is a chain. Think about something you really wanted that didn't work out. Maybe you didn't get into the school you wanted. Maybe someone rejected you. Maybe a business failed. Maybe a friendship ended. In that moment, it probably felt like the end of the world, right? But now, looking back, you can probably see that it wasn't. In fact, some of your biggest disappointments probably led to your biggest breakthroughs. But we don't see that in the moment. In the moment, we're attached to our vision of how things should be. And when reality doesn't match that vision, we suffer. Not because of what happened, but because of our attachment to what we wanted to happen. Here's something that might sound strange. Most of your suffering comes from wanting things to be different than they are. Not from what's actually happening, but from your resistance to what's happening. A person without attachment can experience the same events as you, but feel completely different about them. Same life, different experience. The difference is attachment. Let's go deeper. Why do you want what you want? Really think about it. You want money, but why? You probably think it's because money will make you happy, give you security, give you freedom. You want a relationship, but why? You think it will complete you, make you feel loved, prove your worth. You want success, but why? Because you think it will finally make you feel good enough. Do you see what's happening? You're attaching your peace to external things. You're saying, I'll be okay when this happens, or I'll be happy if I get that. But this is a trap, because external things are temporary and unreliable. They come and go, they change. And if your peace depends on them, your peace will always be fragile. The truth is that everything you're chasing outside of yourself is actually something you're trying to feel inside yourself. You don't want money, you want the feeling you think money will give you. You don't want the relationship, you want the feeling you think the relationship will give you. And here's the breakthrough. Those feelings don't come from the external things, they come from you. They always have. When you realize this, everything changes. Because you stop placing demands on life. You stop saying, life needs to give me this so I can be happy. Instead, You find the happiness first, and then you engage with life from that place. Now, some people hear this and they think it means you shouldn't want anything. That's not it. You can still have preferences, you can still have goals, you can still work toward things. The difference is in the grip. Are you holding loosely or desperately? Can you be okay if you don't get what you want? Can you appreciate what you have without needing it to be permanent? Think about the people you know who seem the most free. They're not the ones with the most stuff. They're the ones who need the least. They're not attached to things being a certain way. They adapt. They flow. They appreciate what comes and they let go of what goes. And here's what's really interesting. When you're not desperately attached to outcomes, you actually perform better. Athletes call it being in the zone. It's that state where you're fully engaged but not tight, where you're trying your best but not clenching. That's what happens when you let go of attachment to the result. You paradoxically do better because you're not in your own way. Attachment makes you rigid, and rigidity breaks. Flexibility survives. The tree that doesn't bend in the storm gets uprooted. The tree that bends survives. Be like that tree. Here's a practice. Look at something in your life you're really attached to. Maybe it's your job, your relationship status, your home, your routine. Now ask yourself, what would happen if I lost this tomorrow? Can I be okay? Can I imagine myself still being fundamentally all right, even without this thing? If the answer is no, that's where you're stuck. That's where you need to work on letting go. Because anything you can't imagine losing has power over you. And anything that has power over you controls your peace. You've given away your freedom to something external. The way to get your freedom back is to loosen the grip, the power of acceptance. So if we're letting go of control and releasing attachment, what are we replacing them with? Acceptance. And acceptance might be the most misunderstood concept out there. Acceptance doesn't mean you like what's happening. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It doesn't mean you stop trying to change things. Acceptance simply means you acknowledge what is. You stop arguing with reality. You stop saying this shouldn't be happening, because it is happening. That's reality. And reality is the one argument you'll never win. Think about pain for a second. Physical pain. When you resist pain, what happens? It gets worse. Your muscles tense up. Your breathing gets shallow. Your mind starts racing with thoughts like, why is this happening? And this is terrible and I can't handle this. All of that resistance amplifies the pain. But when you accept the pain, when you breathe into it, when you acknowledge it without fighting it, something interesting happens. The pain is still there, but your suffering decreases. Same sensation, less suffering. That's the power of acceptance. Now apply that to everything else. Emotional pain, difficult situations, uncertainty, change, loss. When you accept what is, you free up all the energy you were using to fight reality. And that energy can now be used to actually deal with the situation. Here's what acceptance looks like in practice. Something bad happens. You lose your job. Your first response without acceptance might be panic, denial, anger. This can't be happening. This is so unfair. What am I going to do? You might spend days or weeks in that state, paralyzed by non-acceptance. But with acceptance, it looks different. Something bad happens. You lose your job. Your response is, okay, this is what's happening. I didn't want this, but this is real. Now what can I do from here? You skip the suffering and go straight to dealing with reality. Same situation, completely different experience. This doesn't mean you don't feel emotions. You can accept a situation and still feel sad, angry, or disappointed. The difference is you're not adding suffering on top of those emotions. You're not making it worse by resisting it. There's a saying that goes like this: pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Pain is what happens when life doesn't go the way you wanted. Suffering is what happens when you refuse to accept the pain. Suffering is pain multiplied by resistance. And here's something profound. When you accept what is, you actually become more powerful. Because acceptance is the starting point for all real change. You can't change something you won't acknowledge. You can't solve a problem you're denying exists. Acceptance isn't the end of action, it's the beginning of effective action. People think acceptance is passive, but it's actually the most active thing you can do. It takes more strength to accept what you don't like than it does to complain about it. It takes more courage to face reality than to hide from it. Acceptance is not weakness, it's the ultimate strength. Look at any person who's overcome something difficult. They all have one thing in common. At some point, they accepted their reality. The person who overcame addiction accepted they were an addict. The person who rebuilt their life after loss accepted the loss. The person who changed their health accepted where they were starting from. Acceptance was the turning point. You know what's exhausting? Pretending things are different than they are. Maintaining the fantasy that you're in control of everything, that life should be fair, that bad things shouldn't happen to you. That's exhausting. Acceptance is rest. It's finally putting down the heavy weight of should and just dealing with is. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you accept where you are, you become free to move forward. When you're in denial or resistance, you're stuck. You're frozen in non-acceptance. But the moment you accept, you can start taking steps, even small ones, even imperfect ones. But you're moving again. Think about this. Right now, there's probably something in your life you're not accepting. Maybe it's your age. Maybe it's your past. Maybe it's a relationship that ended. Maybe it's a mistake you made. Maybe it's who you are versus who you thought you'd be by now. Whatever it is, it's taking up space in your mind. It's draining your energy. And the drain stops the moment you accept it. Acceptance is saying, this is where I am, this is what happened, this is who I am right now. And from here I can build. It's radical honesty with yourself and with reality, and that honesty is freedom. ART of trust. Once you start letting go and accepting what is, you need something to replace all that control and attachment. That something is trust. Trust in the process, trust in life. Trust that you're going to be okay even when you can't see how. This is hard for most people because we're taught to trust only what we can predict and control. We want guarantees. We want to know how things will turn out before we relax. But life doesn't work that way. Life requires you to move forward without knowing, to take the next step, even when the whole path isn't visible. And that's scary. Your brain wants certainty because certainty feels safe. But here's the truth. Certainty is an illusion. You never actually have it. You just think you do. And chasing that illusion of certainty is what keeps you stuck, anxious, and unable to move forward. Think about every major transition in your life. Starting school, leaving home, starting a career, ending a relationship, moving to a new place. In the moment, you probably didn't know if things would work out. You couldn't see the future. You had no guarantees. You had to trust. And somehow you made it through. You're here now reading this. You survived 100% of your worst days. That's a pretty good track record. You've been tested before and you came out the other side. Every single time. But we forget this. Every time something new and uncertain comes up, we act like we've never dealt with uncertainty before. We panic, we grip, we try to control. Instead of remembering that we've always found a way, that life has always moved forward, that we're more resilient than we think. We have this incredible track record of handling things, and yet when the next challenge comes, we immediately doubt ourselves. Trust is understanding that you don't need to see the whole staircase to take the first step. You just need to take the first step. And then the next one appears, and then the next. Life reveals itself step by step. not all at once. And trying to see the entire path before you move is just another form of control. It's your mind trying to manage uncertainty by mapping everything out in advance. But life doesn't work like that. The path forward appears as you walk it, not before. You have to be willing to move into the unknown, trusting that the ground will be there when your foot comes down. Here's what trust looks like in real life. You do your best, you make the best decision you can with the information you have right now. You take action based on that. And then you trust that whatever happens, you'll be able to handle it. Not because you've figured out every possible scenario and have a backup plan for each one, but because you trust yourself and you trust the process of life. You trust that you're resourceful enough, strong enough, creative enough to deal with whatever comes. And you know what? You are. You've proven it over and over again throughout your life. There's something called the wisdom of uncertainty. It means that not knowing can actually be better than knowing. Because when you don't know, you stay open, you stay flexible, you stay present. You don't get locked into one path or one outcome. You can adapt. You can respond to what actually shows up rather than being disappointed that what you predicted didn't happen. People who need to know everything in advance end up missing half of life because they're so busy trying to control the future that they're not present for what's actually happening right now. But people who can sit with uncertainty, who can trust without knowing, they're free. They can respond to reality instead of fighting it. People who trust life are the ones who seem the luckiest. But it's not luck. It's because they're not rigid. They're not attached to one specific outcome. So when opportunities come that don't look exactly like what they imagined, they can see them and take them. They're paying attention to what is rather than what they think should be. Meanwhile, people who need everything to happen a specific way miss all sorts of opportunities because those opportunities don't match their narrow expectations. They're so focused on door number 1 that they don't notice doors 2, 3, and 4 standing wide open. Trust also means trusting that challenges are part of the path, not obstacles to it. Every difficult thing you've gone through has taught you something or strengthened you in some way. Maybe you can't see it yet, but it's there. The person you are now was shaped by everything you've experienced, including the hard stuff. Maybe especially the hard stuff. The easy times didn't teach you much, but the hard times, those built character. Those revealed what you're made of. Those showed you that you're stronger than you thought. So when the next hard thing comes, can you trust that this too is part of your path? Can you trust that there's something here for you to learn or some way you need to grow? Not because everything happens for a reason in some cosmic predetermined way, but because you can find meaning and growth in anything if you look for it. You can use anything. Even the worst experiences can become fuel for your growth if you're willing to learn from them. Trust is also trusting yourself. Trusting that you have what it takes. Trusting that you'll figure things out. Trusting that even if you fail, you'll survive and learn. Most of your anxiety comes from not trusting yourself. You think, what if I can't handle it? But you can. You always have. You always will. You're still here after everything you've been through. That's proof. Every time you doubted yourself before and then handled the situation anyway, that was proof. Every time you thought you couldn't do something and then did it, that was proof. You have more evidence that you can handle things than evidence that you can't. But fear makes you forget all that evidence. And here's the thing about trust. It's a practice. You build it by proving to yourself over and over that you can handle uncertainty. Every time you face something unknown and come out the other side, you're building trust. Every time you let go and things work out okay, you're building trust. Every time you accept what is and find your way forward, You're building trust. It's like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. Start small if you need to. Trust in small things. Trust that the sun will come up tomorrow. Trust that your heart will keep beating without you thinking about it. Trust that you'll figure out what to eat for dinner. Build from there. Trust in slightly bigger things. Trust that you'll handle that difficult conversation. Trust that you'll find a solution to that problem. Trust that even if things don't go perfectly, you'll be okay. Each small act of trust makes the next one easier. The more you practice trust, the easier it becomes. And the easier it becomes, the more peace you feel, because trust and peace are connected. When you trust life, you can relax into the present moment instead of always being anxious about the future. You stop living in your head, running scenarios and trying to prevent disasters that haven't happened yet. You come back to now. And now is the only place where peace exists. The future is uncertain and always will be. Can trust that you'll handle the future when it becomes the present, just like you've always done, receiving through release. Now we get to the part that seems impossible until you experience it. When you actually let go, really let go, life starts giving you things you couldn't have gotten by holding on. This isn't magic or spiritual nonsense. This is about how reality actually works. And once you see this pattern, once you experience it yourself, everything changes. When you're gripping tightly to one specific outcome, you're closed. Your hands are full. There's no room for anything else to come in. You're so focused on that one thing you want that you miss everything else around you. Your vision narrows, your options narrow. Your whole world becomes about getting that one thing. But when you open your hands, when you release, you create space. Space for new possibilities. Space for things you never imagined. Space for life to surprise you in ways you couldn't have planned or predicted. This is where the magic happens, but only when you're open enough to receive it. Think about a time when you stopped chasing something and it came to you. Maybe you stopped desperately looking for a relationship and then met someone when you weren't trying. Maybe you stopped obsessing over a goal and then achieved it naturally once you relaxed. Maybe you stopped trying to force a solution and the answer just appeared when you stepped back. This happens all the time, but we don't always notice the pattern. We don't connect the dots between letting go and receiving. But the pattern is there, consistent and reliable. Once you know to look for it, the pattern is this: desperation repels, ease attracts. When you're desperate, when you're gripping, you're coming from a place of lack. You're saying, I don't have this and I need it and I'm not okay without it. That energy affects everything you do. It affects how you show up. It affects the decisions you make. It affects how other people perceive you. You make worse decisions when you're desperate because you're not thinking clearly. You're in survival mode. You push too hard because you think more force will get you what you want. You miss obvious things because you have tunnel vision. You exhaust yourself because desperation is draining. And other people can feel it. They can sense when someone needs something from them, and it makes them want to pull away. But when you release, when you let go, you're coming from a different place entirely. You're saying, I'm okay right now. I prefer certain outcomes, but I'm okay either way. I'll be fine no matter what happens. Is completely different. You're more relaxed, so you think more clearly. You see more options because you're not fixated on just one path. You're more attractive to others because you're not needy. You make better decisions because you're not operating from fear. You actually become more effective at achieving your goals when you're not desperately attached to them. It sounds backwards, but it's true. The less you need something, the more likely you are to get it. It's like holding sand. The tighter you grip, the more it slips through your fingers. But hold your hand open and the sand stays. Life works the same way. The things you're desperately holding on to are the things most likely to slip away. The things you hold loosely are the things that tend to stay. Think about relationships. The more you cling to someone, the more they pull away. The more secure and independent you are, the more they want to be close to you. It's not a game or a trick. It's just how human nature works. People are attracted to wholeness, not neediness. This applies to everything in your life. Relationships. The more needy you are, the more you push people away. The more secure and independent you are, the more attractive you become. Money. The more desperate you are about it, the worse your financial decisions become. You take bad deals. You jump at the first opportunity without evaluating it properly. You make choices from fear instead of strategy. But the more relaxed and strategic you are, the better opportunities you see and the better decisions you make. Health. The more you stress about it, the worse it gets, because stress itself damages your health. The more you take care of yourself from a place of ease rather than fear, the better results you get. And here's something really interesting that most people never realize. When you let go, you often discover you didn't actually need what you thought you needed. You were fine without it. Or something better came along that you wouldn't have seen if you were still fixated on the original thing. Or you got what you wanted, but in a completely different way than you imagined. Life has a way of giving you what you need, not necessarily what you think you want. But you have to be open to receive it. And you can't be open when you're clenched around one specific desire or outcome. Your grip itself is blocking what's trying to come to you. There's also this. When you release control, you allow other people and situations to breathe. You stop suffocating your relationships with neediness. You stop strangling your projects with perfectionism. You stop crushing your own spirit with impossible expectations. Everything and everyone around you benefits when you loosen your grip. Your partner feels free to love you instead of feeling pressured. Your kids feel free to be themselves instead of trying to meet your expectations. Your coworkers feel free to collaborate instead of walking on eggshells. Your own creativity flows instead of being blocked by your fear of failure. People want to be around someone who isn't desperate or controlling. It's just more pleasant. It's easier. It's lighter. Opportunities come to people who are open and flexible because those people can see them and say yes to them. Solutions appear to minds that aren't rigidly fixated on one path. Letting go creates flow. And flow is where life happens. Where creativity happens. Flow is where connection happens. Flow is where joy happens. You can't force flow. You can only allow it by getting out of the way. Right now, what are you holding on to that you need to release? What are you gripping so tightly that your hand is cramping? What would happen if you just opened your hand and let it be? You might be surprised to find that what you need doesn't leave, it stays, or something better comes to fill that space. Or you realize you didn't need it as much as you thought. Maybe you were fine all along and just didn't know it. The more you let go, the more life gives you. Not because you're being rewarded for letting go by some cosmic force, but because letting go removes the obstacles you are creating. You get out of your own way. You stop blocking your own path. You stop creating your own suffering through resistance and control. And in that space, in that openness, life can flow to you and through you in ways it never could when you were clenched tight. The river of life wants to carry you forward, but you have to stop swimming against it. You have to stop trying to push the river in a different direction. Just let it carry you and see where it goes. This is the practice. This is the path. Let go of control, release attachment, accept what is. Trust the process and watch what happens. Watch how life starts working with you instead of against you. Watch how much lighter you feel when you're not carrying the weight of trying to control everything. Watch how much more you actually receive when you stop desperately grasping. Your hands are open now. You're ready to receive, and life is ready to give. The life you want isn't found in holding on tighter. It's found in learning to let go.